Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3Iron, and part of the reason why we are all collectively as a community of Path of Exile players going bonkers right now is because with the announcement of the 325 Settlers of Kalguur League, we have an official currency market inside the game of Path of Exile. This is not an April Fool's joke. This is not a prank. This is not a Rickroll, like you can click on the links. Like, this is a legitimate link. This is a legitimate discussion. This is a legitimate thing. Like, we actually have currency trading inside Path of Exile for the first time ever, where you're actually going player to player. This is not an NPC that you are exchanging at a set value rate inside the game. This is essentially a currency marketplace, a currency auction house. For years, we have heard the answers to the questions, will there ever be an auction house? Will there ever be a marketplace? Will there ever be in-game support for some level of peer-to-peer, player-to-player trading in Path of Exile in order to smooth out player experience, player progression, character gearing? And the answer has always been nope, nada, no way, not happening, never, not a chance, can't do it, no. That's always been the answer. This is a post for those of you who are new to Path of Exile, and by new, I just mean if you haven't played the game obsessively since 2017, all right? I did the quick Wayback Google and found this post by Chris, the lead developer at Grinding Gear Games, Chris Wilson. What an awesome leader he is, and what an awesome game Path of Exile is. This post is from November 2nd of 2017. Okay, this was the trade manifesto. People have referenced the trade manifesto. If you're seeing people on Twitch talk about the trade manifesto, talking about why Settlers of Kalguur is such a shock, I'm excited for Settlers because of all of the minigame colonization, Settlers vibes and base building and all that. I'm excited for all of that stuff that's League stuff. But this is actually the biggest thing that we've seen drop in Path of Exile's history. I think this is bigger than Oriath. I think this is bigger than when Grinding Gear Games said, hey, we're going to go from a 4-act, 3, difficulty gameplay loop for the campaign to just 10 acts. I think this is actually a bigger announcement than that. And that was massive in terms of gameplay. This is massive precisely for the reason why Ziggy D identified it, and as soon as the trailer was over and in the first couple questions talking about this market that's coming to the game, he said, new players and returning players, when they talk about Path of Exile in a negative way, the number one piece of negative feedback that you hear, whether that's new players or returning players, what you hear is it's a pain in the butt to trade. It's a pain in the butt to acquire new gear through player interactions. And that has been by design. That's been a choice of Grinding Gear Games, a design choice to make things difficult since the inception of Path of Exile, since the conception of Path of Exile in its implementation. And here in 325 Settlers of Kalguur, we see the goalposts moving. We see more welcomed additional ways that players can interact inside the game. You don't have to go to a Discord server and interact with shady mods and shady people and get bullied and all sorts of different left, right, and center sorts of things. You don't have to go and install a third-party program. You don't have to go in and interact with the Grinding Gear Games website. You don't have to have 2 monitors in order to operate and really exchange currency anymore. Now, let me clarify what this is not, what this is, and then, again, fill in the picture with this history here with the Trade Manifesto. What this is not, okay? This is not a full-on auction house. So if you are sharing this with other friends and you're telling other people, hey, an auction house is finally coming to Path of Exile, you need to make sure that you use these words very carefully. A currency exchange or a currency auction house, okay? An in-game tradable market whereby you can explicitly exchange in-game currency. This is not RMT. This is not Diablo 4, Diablo 3 sort of auction house sort of stuff that was, man, how long ago was that Diablo 3 did that? Anyway, regardless of the RMT with Diablo 3, this is not that. You cannot put rare items on here. You cannot just throw uniques up, etc. This is a currency exchange market. You can grab currency. You can grab delirium stuff. You can grab essences. You can grab breach stuff, legion stuff, fragments, delve, divination cards, scarabs, oils, catalysts, expedition stuff, scouting reports, life force, omens, tattoos. Now, unique items, not on here. Rare items, not on here. You're still going to have to use the trade website. You're still going to have to use all those other things that you normally would. But if you need to exchange, I don't know, a bunch of exalted orbs into chaos. If you need to maybe turn that 700 stack of orbs of chance into some usable amount of other currency that you're going to use because you're not planning on gambling for a headhunter using orbs of chance for whatever reason or something else, boom, you can then list them in this currency exchange market to somebody else for a currency that you'd like. And when somebody else puts in a buy order, boom, the swap happens. You don't have to be sitting in your hideout. You don't have to be sitting AFK. You don't have to go to somebody else's hideout. This is just going to pop up as a notification. The trade request that you put in, it's done. It's done. It's just done. Oh, it feels so great. I'm not even playing the game right now, and this feels amazing. And all of this happened because, at least as Mark told the story on stream, he was trying to trade for catalysts. 100 people didn't get back to him. It was all just AFK and price fixers. Super frustrating. He had a frustrating experience that you and I have had tens of maybe thousands of times between us as a community. Mark had that experience and said, enough is enough. Let's make this a little bit easier on the players. So that's what we're getting. That's not what we're getting, right? We're not getting a full-on auction house with everything, but what we are getting is a much smoother currency exchange inside Path of Exile. You don't need to alt-tab. You don't need to sort through a billion players. You don't need to message anybody. You're just going to put in a buy order. You're going to put in a sell order, and when it gets filled, it's filled. Now, with all that being said, I'm sure there's going to be bugs in it. I'm sure there's going to be kinks to work out. I'm sure there's going to be changes if GGG thinks there need to be changes, but this is incredible, and we as players, For the last as many years as I've been talking Path of Exile, players have said, I'm not coming back to POE because trade is too big of a problem. Or let me know when POE makes trade easier because then I might come back. Well, a couple leagues ago, we made it so that GGG made it so that way you could put all of the currency of one particular type inside the trade window. That was a massive, massive risk saver. You didn't have to just click through, 30 different tabs worth of, or 30 different squares worth of goods on your trade screen. You could just do it all in one click. That was just a massive lifesaver in terms of quality of life. But this blows everything out of the water. The biggest hit that is on this game, the biggest black eye that is on Path of Exile, is not its complexity, although it's complex. It's not its learning curve, although it is one of the steepest games I've ever played in terms of its learning curve. Maybe Eve is probably the next highest. But in terms of its biggest mark against it of why players won't play, it's because of the lack of smoothness in trade, and that's been by design. So Chris said back in 2017, items matter, trade is important. When we started developing Path of Exile in 2006, we identified several key design pillars. These are fundamental philosophies chosen to guide our design decisions throughout development. One of these was that items matter. Later on in the next paragraph, he says, for items to matter, it's important that they can be traded to other players. It's important that you could give the item to other players if you were able to convince you into it. For this reason, almost nothing in Path of Exile is bound to your account, even in solo self-bound mode, which doesn't allow trading. Items can be moved at will into the regular trading league so that you can benefit from their value if desired. Now, this is something that is actually changing just a little bit because gold is account bound. Gold doesn't change in between players, and it's going to take gold in order to list things on the currency exchange. But gold is so plentiful because it drops all over the place. Gold you don't have to click on. Gold you just walk over. It's already there. Super duper easy to get. If you just walk around and kill monsters, you will have gold. So you don't have to worry about farming for gold. So that's a fascinating point and something that we see that's a little bit of a deviation where GGG is adding something here that's account bound. It's a layer of account bound value or account bound currency that is going to be used and kind of is going to act as a bit of a layer of friction or even a measure of a boundary on how often players are going to be able to trade. But that ability to trade and list things is, again, limited only by the amount of gold that you have, which you get from killing monsters. So if you just play the game, you're going to have the gold. And if you have the gold, then you can list whatever currency you want to list in whatever sizes that you've got to fill that list. Okay, so Chris then lays out a couple of consequences of easy trade. He says, these are paragraph headers. I'm not reading the whole thing. We did that way back in 2017, and we've done it many times since. Easy trade reduces the number of times a character improves their item. Easy trade means reducing drop rates. Easy trade would make the disparity between different players too great. Easy trade allows for greater abuse by automation, right? By botting. So, trade in Path of Exile. From the start, we knew that Path of Exile needed the ability to trade items and that we had to be careful not to make it too easy. We had seen what had happened in other action RPGs, namely Diablo 3, when characters could be upgraded trivially. We added trade chat and a secure player-to-player trade screen so that people could negotiate transactions and complete them without counterparty risk. With insufficient foresight into how it would eventually affect trade, we also added the ability to link items on the official forums. Now, this is important. GGG did not initially want players to just be able to link stuff and build third-party organized websites and apps in order to support trade. They wanted trade to be as hard as possible. They wanted items to matter and have weight, but they didn't want to make it so that way there was this mass market for items to move along. So, he describes all of that progress, that long history of what happened once items were listable. Then he says, the version of Path of Exile published by Tencent in mainland China uses a trade market rather than a system of exposing items via public stash tabs and forum posts for searching their websites. This system is also used on the Xbox One version of Path of Exile. As you can imagine, web page searches and textual trade conversations aren't well suited to the controller input of a console. On the trade market, we're experimenting with the opposite end of the trade spectrum, where it's very easy to complete trades, but more difficult to find the exact item you're looking for. You can search broadly by a specific item type or class, but you have to look through a lot of search results. Again, GGG's philosophy behind trade has always been to try and make things difficult to make items that you do get and that you do achieve and that you do trade for feel like they matter more. So, he wraps it up by saying, as mentioned in today's nude post from back in 2017, we're changing online API, etc., blah, blah, blah. So here's the deal. The history of grinding gear games in making trade difficult, that's been a design feature, not a flaw. And so what we see here today is we see with this wonderful, beautiful currency exchange market that is now available to us, this is insane. This is awesome. This ought to be like the most upvoted post of all time in the Path of Exile subreddit. This is mind-boggling. The level of critique that Path of Exile has taken, whether it's on Steam, whether it's in just in the public market, whether it's in discussions in your own gaming groups. People say, oh yeah, that's the game where it's really tough to get items, and it's the game where it's really annoying to trade with people. That's what people know Path of Exile for, if it's in a negative light, generally. And that is slowly getting answered. We don't have a full-on auction house. Don't hear what I'm not saying, right? Don't hear what I'm not saying. We don't have a full-on auction house. But we do have a currency exchange market. That's coming in 3.25. If nothing else was coming in 3.25, I can legitimately say this. If nothing else was coming in 3.25, if they just would have pitched this as Auction House Currency Exchange Market League, and we are adding so much quality of life to trade to make it so that way you can get whatever currency and whatever stackable amounts of items that you need, you can get that inside the game. No two screens, no two players, no leaving your game rhythm or stopping mapping in order to make these trades. No going to a website that might be down or might be slow. No messaging players that might be AFK. Just like almost all of the headache, at least when it comes to things that are stackable and that are allowable to trade, almost all of that has now been solved. Now, maybe there will be new headaches that will come, but I don't think it's possible in the context of Path of Exile discussions to overplay this. This is massive. This is great. This is going to be helpful for players, new and old. And I'm stoked for 3.25. If for nothing else than for this, there's also a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming in 3.25. I might break out an Earthquake Juggernaut. I don't know yet. I'm stoked for it, but I know whatever it is that I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to be sitting frustrated looking at one screen and then bouncing to the other and going, oh, gee, I just wish this person is here so that way I can trade these orbs of scouring. That's gone. All that frustration and time wasted, that's all gonna go, sayonara, sucker. So anyway, I'm stoked for it. This is why the community is reacting the way how it is. If you weren't aware of it, it's because this design feature has finally been recognized as being a design flaw, and it's going the way of the dodo bird. Thank goodness. Thank Toucan. And as always, I hope the ongoing 325 and upcoming 325 Settlers of Kalguur League is the league where you can trade for a Mirror of Kalandra, because you can just list it and buy it. Oh, that's so awesome. Anyway, I'll see you in 325.
Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.